Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. With the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation coming on Monday, the NDP used its time during question period on Friday to challenge the Liberal government's record on reconciliation. APTN's Fraser Needham has more.
Noting the 9 deaths of First Nations people at the hands of police in the past month, Nunavut NDP MP Laurie Idlout asked the government how it plans to address Indigenous people's lack of trust in the RCMP and municipal police forces.
Studies won't save lives. We need action now, like an Indigenous-led crisis response team. The Liberals need to stop delaying. Why does this government refuse to act to save Indigenous people's lives?
Parliamentary Secretary for Public Safety Jennifer O'Connell acknowledged systemic racism in the criminal justice system and said it is a problem the Liberals are working on.
We are putting together and we have worked on a number of measures. There is definitely more to do. I appreciate the suggestion that the member has made, and we will continue to work on this to ensure that everybody is safe. Thank you.
Winnipeg NDP MP Leah Gazan then called on the Liberals to support her new private member's bill, which would make residential school denialism a crime.
Willfully promoting hatred against Indigenous people through residential school denialism has no place in Canada. So will the Liberal government support my bill to end this hate and protect the stories of survivors?
Parliamentary Secretary for Crown Indigenous Relations Jaime Batiste said the government continues to promote greater awareness and address past wrongs of the residential school system.
It's shameful that anyone would deny that the residential schools happen and its impact on Canadians. Our government is going to continue to create awareness. Our government is going to continue to support healing. Our government is going to continue to address past wrongs. We're committed to that.
In recognition of National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, the House of Commons is not scheduled to sit on Monday. It resumes sitting on Tuesday. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
To the north now, where Yukon government is decrying rising crime in Whitehorse's downtown core. Well, the issue isn't unique to Whitehorse. The government says downtown residents, businesses are feeling frustrated and unsafe. Now the government is rolling out an updated plan to tackle the issue. Here's Sarah Connors with that story.
Late last month, 2 men robbed this downtown Whitehorse Indian restaurant by knife point. The thieves stole around $1,200 in cash. The incident left the restaurant's owners shaken, and they're concerned for their employees' and customers' safety.
We didn't know after opening this business that on top of this we would have to deal with this as well, and it's really stressful.
It's become a concerning trend in downtown Whitehorse. The Whitehorse RCMP say property crime is on the rise. The most recent RCMP statistics show a 28% increase in break-and-enters between April and June of this year compared to the same quarter last year. A 17% increase in thefts under $5,000, a 60% increase in vehicle thefts, a 108% increase in thefts from motor vehicles, and over half of total police service calls occurred in the downtown area.
What's happening right now is absolutely unacceptable.
Yukon's premier says a small number of bad actors are harming the community.
There's been too many instances of buildings, homes, vehicles being broken into. Again yesterday, the day before. It continues. People feel unsafe.
The government has added new action items to a safety response plan it released late last year in order to tackle the problem. That includes having nonprofit Safe at Home Society operate a supportive housing program at this government-owned building across from the Whitehorse Emergency Shelter. The government will also fund 2 additional members of the Whitehorse RCMP detachment to specifically address concerns from downtown residents and businesses pending legislative approval.
This is certainly a complex issue, requires a combination or a balance of responses. There's no one answer, there's no silver bullet.
Versa restaurants owners say it's time for meaningful change.
Stop all of this from happening. You know, we can all see that this is wrong. We all know that this is wrong, but like nothing's been happening. You know, we gotta make sure it's a safe community. We gotta make sure Whitehorse is safe.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
A land protector group in Winnipeg is preparing people for if and when resource extraction companies come to their Indigenous communities looking to make money. Sav Jonesa was there.
Roderick Ross has great concerns for the state of Lake Winnipeg, the world's 10th largest freshwater lake.
The lake is already dying. I've expressed my concern on that many times to the decision makers.
Ross is from Barons River First Nation, roughly 300 kilometers north of Manitoba's capital along the eastern shore of Lake Winnipeg. It's the same water body land protector group Camp Morningstar has been defending since the silica sand mine was first proposed and later approved in the traditional territory of Hollowater First Nation in 2018. After more than 5 years of advocacy for the environment, Camp Morningstar held a conference this week to help educate, empower, and share experiences with other communities facing resource extraction projects on their land. Camp Morningstar and Hollowater First Nation member Marcel Hardesty is looking forward to what attendees will leave with.
Hopefully with more insight about their place in creation and also the role or the responsibility that they can take up, to change policy from industrial practice, government policy, and also learn about what the Indian Act really is.
And what do you think the Indian Act really is?
It's a destructive, oppressive policy.
The conference focused on Indigenous peoples' right to free, prior, and informed consent. This means having ongoing, genuine conversations with a community before extracting resources from their land. Camp Morningstar and Hollowater member Lisa Raven says that process is what's missing during the development of many of these projects.
In my opinion, what that means is the establishment of a relationship. And so it's the beginning of a relationship, whether that is to unfold a development or if it's not. And so the foundation of the relationship is not on the outcome, but it's on the conversation and the process.
Ross says it's important for First Nations to learn about free, prior, and informed consent.
That everybody should be informed of the implications, of the benefits. Everybody should be on the same open page of discussion and communication when it involves our lives, their lives, and the impact that it has on the environment around them.
Quentin DeLorme attended with the Lake Winnipeg Indigenous Collective and says resource extraction is one of the many ways the genocide against First Nation peoples has continued.
I think there's just a real sense of urgency and some very valid feelings of anger and frustration from First Nations people who constantly have to fight this fight day in and day out.
Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
All I had was coffee.
We're always looking for your feedback on anything you see here, or if there's something you'd like to see here. Here's how to continue the conversation. If you have a story you'd like to share, you can send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, you can go to our website. That's aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. Cassidy Caron's term as president of the Métis National Council is ending next week. We'll speak with her after the break. Plus, Sav Jonesa took to the streets of Winnipeg to ask people what exactly truth and reconciliation means to them.
Well, to me it means that we have to remember the children, we have to remember what happened, and we can't let it happen again.
Welcome back. Next week will mark the end of Cassidy Caron's term as president of the Métis National Council. It has been a tumultuous 3 years for the MNC. It started with the Manitoba Métis Federation withdrawing from the organization. and it is ending with the Métis Nation Saskatchewan also pulling out after 41 years. In a statement this week, Caron described the MNC as being at a crossroads. We spoke with her earlier today. President Caron, thanks so much for taking the time here today. How would you sum up your 3-year term as president of the Métis National Council?
It's great to be here, Dennis. You know, over the last 3 years, I've said it before and I'll continue saying it. It's been the honor of a lifetime to serve as the Métis National Council president for these last 3 years. Something that I certainly didn't think I would do in my lifetime. It was never truly an aspiration of mine, but it was something that, you know, after being asked by our community to do, has been just an absolute honor and an incredible experience to get to serve the nation in this capacity.
In your recent statement on the Métis Nation Saskatchewan withdrawing from MNC, you mentioned that the organization's at a crossroads, but that you've proposed a promising road forward for MNC's ongoing existence. What does that road look like?
So yeah, and it's not just the Métis National Council that's at a crossroads. I think truly the entire Métis Nation is at a crossroads at this point in time, as you know, the idea of the implementation of self-government and treaty is something that is so brand new to this country, something that our ancestors obviously have dreamed of with our right to self-determination and right to self-government. But as we go down these pathways, it's new for everyone, and to understand what's best for the Métis Nation is the crossroads that we're at right now. For the Métis National Council, as I've said, I'll say it again and again, is that there's a place for the Métis National Council here in Ottawa to maintain this national space for all of our Métis governments, you know, in one way or another, to potentially come back to at one point in time. Right now is not the time for some of our leaders who want to be a part of the Métis National Council, but to have a national Indigenous body here in Ottawa to make sure that we're advocating for our Métis citizens, our Métis communities with the federal government, and even on the international level, is critically important for the Métis Nation. So with the withdrawal of Métis Nation Saskatchewan, I have worked with our team here. You know, we went through this 3 years ago, the day before my election, when the Manitoba Métis Federation withdrew, and I learned a lot of lessons through that. You know, that was a big change for the Métis National Council, and applying those lessons to drawing out what the pathway forward is. So we've done just that. We've made sure that we've checked with all of our teams here, and we've presented it to each of our remaining governors to determine what the pathway is to move forward.
Well, your term ends in about 48 hours or so. Have you considered staying on until things are sorted out, a new leader chosen?
So, great question. So the postponement of the annual General Assembly and the election for the Métis National Council was a decision that was made unanimously by all Board of Governors members on August 30th, signed off by BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario. And the reason for that was because we, of course, have our expert panel report that is going to be delivered to the Board of Governors on October 15th. The presidents of the Métis National Council decided that it was best, in our best interest, to have all of the information before we got to that General Assembly, which was why it was determined that they would postpone. In the Métis National Council bylaws, which are also currently under reform, there are some ambiguities in there. There are ambiguous clauses that have been used in the past to, you know, unilaterally extend terms of presidents and do harm to the Métis National Council. And so the principled stance that I am taking is that my term is 3 years. I was elected on September 30th of 2021. My term must come to an end before the 3-year date is up. So I will not be extending my term. That was communicated to all of our presidents. And so there will be, you know, a maximum period of 45 days where there is no president of the Métis National Council. They will continue to be governed by our remaining Board of Governors and an interim CEO to ensure that the business of the Métis National Council is not impeded.
Do you think that the Métis National Council is going to survive this current turmoil? Will there be a Métis National Council in 50, 60 days from now?
There is an absolute viable pathway to allow the Métis National Council to remain as a legal organization in good standing with the articles and the Act. And we continue to want to move forward in that way. Ultimately, like I say, I presented a pathway to our governors when the Manitoba Métis Federation withdrew. We remained strong for these last 3 years. With the withdrawal of Métis Nation Saskatchewan, I've once again presented a strong pathway forward, and it will be the determination of the remaining governors to decide what happens.
President Caron, we'll leave it there, but do appreciate you taking some time and wishing you all the best with parenthood.
Thank you so much, Dennis.
Well, with the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation coming up, our reporter Sav Jones took to the streets of Winnipeg to ask people what exactly truth and reconciliation means to them. Here are those answers.
September 30th is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. The day honors residential school survivors, their families, and the children who died at the genocidal institutions. While the terms truth and reconciliation have become woven into mainstream society, what do those words actually mean to our community? We went to the streets of Winnipeg to find out. I'm wondering, what does truth and reconciliation mean to you?
Well, to me it means that we have to remember the children, we have to remember what happened, and we can't let it happen again.
It's a way of showing each other we stand beside one another, and we recognize that what has happened was wronged, and this is a way of, I guess, healing, of our people healing themselves and being there for one another.
They hid everything, they hid it, like what they did to us when in schools and like that, and how they buried everybody, and how they keep everything hidden. So it's about time we get recognized and recognition, whatever.
To me, it's honestly just preserving Indigenous culture and also embracing Indigenous culture in where it's always been. Like these lands here and back home, Indigenous people have lived there for thousands of years, and I don't see any reason to not embrace that.
How do you think, the harms of residential schools could be reconciled?
Honestly, just by speaking about it, gathering and processing what happened is the only way you can, acknowledging it.
Though people may have different ideas of what truth and reconciliation mean to them, it's a good conversation to have, as so many Indigenous people and their families have been impacted by residential schools. By talking together, we can learn a lot about what our community needs to feel heard and to heal. Sav Jones, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Thanks for hitting the streets there, Sav. Time for one last break. Still to come, we'll hear about a new way to learn about Indigenous history and culture.
It looks at spirituality, it looks at science, math, literature, all these different aspects of Indigenous culture.
Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. After a long day of relaxing while fishing, Wilfred Moore was around long enough to capture this amazing display of the Northern Lights over Cat Lake, Ontario. Lucky guy. This weekend, be sure to send us a photo to share at aptn.ca. Then tune in next week to see if you are our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecasts. Starting on the East Coast, showers and 19 for Halifax and Fredericton. 19 with rain in Kuujjuaq, cloudy and 16 in Nain. 22 in Montreal, 23 in Val-d'Or. Sun's out and 26 in Sault Ste. Marie, 22 and sunny skies in North Bay. 26 under the sun in Thunder Bay, sunny and 24 in Sioux Lookout. 20 in God's Lake, Norway House and the Paw. Sunny and 27 in Winnipeg and Dauphin. 27 in Regina, 24 in Saskatoon. 18 in Meadow Lake. Sun's out in 15 in Buffalo Narrows. In northern Alberta, showers in 11 in High Level, 10 with rain in Fort Chipewyan. 17 in Edmonton, 24 in Lethbridge. Cloudy and 15 in Vancouver, cloudy and 19 in Kamloops. 12 in Prince George and Smithers, 7 in Dease Lake. 6 in Old Crow, sunny and 8 in Whitehorse. 9 in Yellowknife, 10 in Wrigley, 9 in Norman Wells. 3 with flurries in Sax Harbor, plus 2 in Paulatuck. 8 with showers in Chesterfield, 7 with rain in Baker Lake. Snow and plus 1 in Resolute, 6 in Igloo Lake. The Alberta Teachers Association has been offering free online learning resources for years. Now there's an impressive collection of learning tools for teachers on Indigenous history and culture. APTN's Chris Stewart checks it out.
I think we should start our day like we always do, and that's with the Cree word of the day. And today's Cree word is Chipai. That's right, Chipai. And that is the Cree word for ghost.
For a decade, Sandra Anderson has been adding to the Alberta Teachers Association's online library with the goal of giving teachers the resources they need to help teach in the classroom. She has helped build an impressive library that links to hundreds of free resources from across Alberta and Canada. And the Indigenous learning section is impressive, linking to teachings of Indigenous peoples, history, and more.
We have guides on Indigenous peoples of Alberta, the Indigenous histories of Canada, as well as foundational knowledge. That's the one that is for teachers that has a lot of information. And it's foundational knowledge across many different topics. So it looks at spirituality, it looks at science, math, literature, all these different aspects of Indigenous culture.
Anderson continues to grow her collection.
I've just been going and finding resources and constantly looking for them, looking at other guides, looking at what other librarians are doing, looking at what Indigenous initiatives there are in education, and connecting to all of those things so that teachers have a really good foundation of which to base their knowledge.
I remember the day walking toward that school with my mother, and it was a silent walk, and I was so afraid. 20 years.
And the online library has been a hit.
We get a lot of response and a lot of usage of those guides, especially right now for the TRC guide for Orange Shirt Day. We are seeing just a ton of usage. So we're probably hit about 12,000 hits this month just on that one guide.
The library can be found at teachers.ab.ca. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
And that is all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Friday. Be sure to join us on Monday, though, for our special live coverage on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. That starts at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time right here. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for being with us. Have a great night.